Hey guys, welcome to Rigging Concepts Video 1 for GAD 357, Character Modeling and Rigging. So this is going to be a series of videos that are going to act as a primer to get you prepared for the more in-depth projects that we're going to be doing this quarter, such as character rigging for a quadruped as well as a biped, but also to include facial rigging. So this is really going to lay the groundwork for what you guys need to be able to do on a fundamental level to be successful with the up-and-coming projects. And so the first topic that we're going to talk about is going to be the concept of parenting. And the way parenting basically works is it's very similar to an FK fashion where you have one object that is a child and another object that is the parent. And when you move the parent object, it moves and it also moves the child object. But the child object will be free to move around as it wants to until the parent moves. So to illustrate that, I'm going to create two objects in this simple scene here. I'm going to create a sphere and a cube. So at the moment, both of them are at the origin. I'm going to take the sphere and I'm going to move it 3.5 or negative 3.5 units in x. I'm going to take the p cube and move it 3.5 units in positive x. So the sphere is at negative 3.5 units and the cube is at 3.5 units. I've also got the outliner open, and for the purposes of all the demos, this is pretty much how I'm going to work when it comes to rigging, because it's a lot easier to show you what's going on in the outliner to help show and explain what's going on in the scene. So we've got two objects here. You can see that they're individually labeled and they're just kind of there. By default, whenever you create an object inside of Maya, it's a child of the world, as it were. So basically it's a child of the scene object. So when you move each of these objects, they will move individually and nothing else will influence them. So the first concept that we want to talk about is parenting. And the procedure for parenting is, if you want to, say for instance, take the cube and parent it to the sphere, you would select the child first, which in this case is the cube, hold down Shift and select the sphere. You'll then go up to Edit and you'll come down and you'll choose Parent, or you can hit the P key. Now once you do that, over in the outliner you're going to notice something has changed. It looks like the cube has actually disappeared, but in reality it's actually put into, it's parented to the sphere. And the way that that is shown in the outliner is you'll see a little plus box that you can open up, and you'll see that there's a connection showing that the cube is just underneath the sphere. And what this basically means is that if you select the sphere and you move it, translate it, or scale it, the cube will inherit the exact same movement as the sphere. So if I go ahead and I rotate, you'll see that it's going to rotate around, and it's basically as though it were linked to this object. And the same holds true when we scale the object. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll bring this back to the default. There's also another thing that's gone on here as well too. When I created both of these objects, I moved them out negative 3.5 units in x and positive 3 units in x for the cube. However, because of the fact that we have parented the cube over to the sphere, this new series of numbers has changed. You'll see specifically in Translate X. It's now 7 units. And you have to think about it in that when you parent an object to another object, the zero value for all of this is wherever this object is at. So to illustrate, if I were to zero this value out, you can see when I go over into wireframe mode that the cube snaps to the position of the sphere. This is now its new parent, or its new world object, as it were. That's why whenever you create an object, everything is always at the origin, which is 0, 0, 0 for translate, rotate, and scale x, y, and z. Excuse me. So for that reason alone, that's why when this object was parented and it was over here, it was at a value of 7. It's no longer at a value of 3.5 because the world, or in this case the grid, is no longer the parent to this object. So whenever you move this object around, it moves the child. However, the child is free to move and do whatever it wants to do until you move the parent, in which case this object will then inherit whatever values you're adjusting on the parent object. So we'll go ahead and we'll undo these and bring them back. In order to unparent an object, you simply select the child object that you wish to unparent. You go to Edit, and you can choose Unparent or Shift P. Once you do that, you'll now notice in the outliner that both of the objects are by themselves. There's no longer a connection line drawn from one object to another, and the values go back to their default state.